wears awful sneakers and awful jeans. You know, I don't care. Wear jeans. I'm not a dress freak. Could care less. But you notice it when somebody changes. I said, she's looking better. Plus the makeup, she got rouge on and lipstick and all this and eyeliner. I don't care about that either, but she's fixing herself up. And her mood seemed a little better, and that nasal tone began to disappear. Good morning, Dr. Atwood. I said, oh no, why? It wasn't said, it was good morning, Dr. Atwood, okay. I thought, oh, she's getting better. And then she started improving in the groups too, like in the group meetings we'd have with 10 other people. Suddenly she wasn't in that mode anymore. She was saying, hello, Miss Jones, how are you? To one of the other patients, how are you doing this morning? Have there been any further developments on the trouble with your son? Like somebody else had talked about the troubles with her son or something like that. And she said, well, I've been thinking about you, Mrs. Jones, and I want to make a suggestion. Have you thought about trying this or this as a possible way of clearing the air with your son and his fiancée, if that was the problem, okay? And they were good suggestions. They were good, sensitive suggestions. I was really impressed with this. And we came to a Friday. And the daycare center was Monday through Friday, and you take the weekend off. And she was looking so good by that Friday. She was looking like $1 million. Her mood is good. And I remember thinking to myself, watch out, I'm trying to save you guys from making the same mistakes I have made. I started thinking, I must even be a better therapist than I have even suspected. I haven't done hardly anything for this woman except sit with her, and just by the magical glow of my presence, she's gotten better and better and better. I think I'll be able to discharge her soon. I want to anyway, get the census down on my group. I got too many people in my hair. I think I'll discharge her on Monday or Tuesday. I'm just feeling real good about myself. I don't understand why she's better. Watch out when somebody gets better and you don't understand it. I'm telling you, and this story illustrates what I'm talking about. I wasn't thinking about this paradoxical phenomenon at this time yet. So I went home, exhausted from the paranoid schizophrenics clawing at me and all this kind of stuff that had happened. I'm wondering what I'm going to do with it, and did I make a mistake even going into this field? I come in the next Monday morning. This is a literal account of what happened. I'm upset now because I've worked myself back into the state where this happened. And I went to the meeting of the psychologists. Every Monday morning at 9 o'clock, there would be a meeting of the psychological staff of the whole hospital. That's 35 guys, okay? They were boring. There's nothing worse than a meeting of psychologists. You have no idea. It's like you make you want to kill yourself. Even just, to even go through, to throw yourself under a bus. The ones here at Rutgers have almost... I'm coming to the end of my career at Rutgers. I'm glad because I don't have to go to these meetings anymore. Anyway, I was at one at the hospital. And I'm sitting in the back thinking, what a bunch of assholes these people are. That's what I'm like. I just sit back there all pissed. I'm like her, why am I here? God, why have you done this to me? It wasn't quite like that. And then thinking about what else I'm thinking about, and then I can't explain it, but they're talking about whatever they're talking about, their stupid policies and what's the right thing for the psychologists. And suddenly a little thought flits through my brain from my undergraduate or graduate years. There's a paradoxical correlation between improvement of mood and the danger of suicide. And then I experienced as if some invisible force had come and brought a gigantic it's like the Gatorade at the end of when they dump it on Bill Parcells, the Super Bowl. It right down to the back of my neck. All the ice and everything came down. Holy shit, this is what we have here going on. I just about died. I'm getting chills through me right now as I remember it emotionally. I just about fell out of the chair I was in. Then I thought, oh shit, she's dead. She's fucking dead. What am I going to do? She showed the classic pattern. I knew about it, I didn't put it together, I didn't think it's my fault already. So I'm praying I'm wrong. And so I'm going to rush, so I jump out of my seat, leave the meeting, fuck you, fuck the bone. I didn't do that. And I race up the stairs, 2 flights of stairs to the daycare center, praying I'm going to find her there in that good mood and all this, like again. Instead, I see her 2 sisters are there, and their faces, I don't even have to ask them what's happened. Their faces are ugly, and they're angry, and they're depressed as anything. I said, what happened? What happened to Margaret? What's the story? She said, she's in the medical hospital. She's in critical condition, not expected to live. I said, I knew it. Oh my God. Here's what had occurred. The previous weekend would be Sunday, the day before, Margaret had been acting real good to her sisters as well. And one of them was decided to take a trip to St. Louis to see a relative. Kansas City is like 90 miles away from St. Louis or something, 70, whatever it is. And left Margaret alone in her apartment. Margaret said, "I'll be fine. Don't worry about me at all. It's fine. Go ahead and do it." And so the sister had left and was going to come back on Monday. It's a miracle saved her life is what happened here. And Margaret, once the sister was gone, thought she was free and clear. And so then she took that full week of medication, Nalgadar. She took a bottle of vodka, the whole darn thing, and she had a whole bunch of other pills she had accumulated and been saving from other places, from her family physician and other things. She just wolfed the whole thing down and finished it off with a bottle of vodka and passed off into unconsciousness. The sister drove an hour toward St. Louis and then remembered some incredibly important papers that she had left on the table there. It's one of these things. She thought, "Oh, shit, I have to have those papers." She turned around and came back. So she found her sister like maybe 3 hours after the ingestion of the whole thing. She was in a deep coma. "Oh my God, look what's happened. She's going to die. Call the 911, the whole thing, hospitalization." They tried to pump her stomach. Most of it had already passed into her digestive system. And she was in a situation where her doctor told her sister that she wasn't really expected to live. They couldn't be sure. There's always hope as long as there's a heartbeat, as long as there's a little bit of brain activity. She wasn't brain dead either yet. They hoped it didn't turn to that. And that was the state when I got there that day. I just couldn't believe how bad it was. I just thought, oh my God, whose fault is this? I'll tell you who's George Atwood. And I had one of my famous conversations with God. If I talk to you guys about this, I consider myself to be an atheist at this time in my life. But when I was in trouble, I found myself talking to God. It calls into question the very idea of atheism. Is such a thing even possible? Or isn't it all these would-be atheists? As soon as you get them in trouble, they're all talking to God. So what is atheism anyway? It's kind of like a furious anger thing toward God. That God's still involved in your very rejection of God. So whatever. I had a talk with him. I said, "God," I said, "do you hear me?" "I hear you." No, I don't. No, I said, "I'm going to say something to you, God. If this woman dies, that is a sign the universe and you are giving me. I've gone into the wrong field. I'm going to resign from the whole thing. I'm just getting the hell out. I've killed someone now. It's my fault. I knew this. I didn't put it together. There's no excuse for that. I will not hear anybody telling me it wasn't my fault. It is my fault. And that's it. If she lives, I'll give our field another chance." Okay, what's it going to be? Well, she lived, is what it is. 3 days later, she came out of her coma, and I immediately went to see her. I was one of the first faces she saw when she woke up. And you know what the first thing she said to me? It was amazing. I remember walking in the door, I'm in my suit, looking good and all, but I am really depressed and upset. She took one look at me and she said, Dr. Atwood, it's not your fault. It's not your fault." She was very sorry. But she was doing this, "It's not your fault." It was back. Because when she woke up and found she wasn't dead, the reason for her improvement vanished. See, that's what it is. And so this so burned me that I held on to it and thought about it. And I saw the reason for her improvement is she had decided to die. And this is what universally accounts for this correlation. I realized that too. The classical explanation for why this correlation is there goes like this. It's not convincing, it's not right. But here's what I was taught, that I didn't use the information. That the reason people are more likely to die when they first improve from a depression is because when they're in the depth of the depression, they have no energy to plan or do anything. But when they start to get better, energy returns. And there's a window of vulnerability there where there's enough of the depression still left, which might include a wish to die, and the energy that's returning might be just enough to carry you through to make the plan and execute the act. And so that's what causes it. But at full recovery, of course, you're not going to kill yourself because you're feeling better. So it's like this idea of energy returning, and then you can perform the act. But that's ridiculous, because how much energy does it take to kill yourself? Like how much to really just let yourself fall out a window? Or how much to drink the bottle of vodka? It takes hardly any energy at all. I think actually in the depth of the depression, it takes tremendous energy to not kill yourself, because life is so unbearable. It takes a tremendous exertion of personal energy to refrain from some outrageous act. But if you decide you're going to do it, and you form a plan, and you know that plan's going to work, you feel a lot better. Because the doorway out is, the solution, salvation's at hand. It's like you're a person in a prison who thought he had everlasting imprisonment that's getting out tomorrow. And you just feel euphoric even, is what it is. So I applied this knowledge to other people and found it verified, again and again with the others. Now, you want to know what happened to this patient? I don't know. Her sisters took her out of my hands and the hospital's hands and put her in a private hospital. Probably she did okay, because you can eventually come to terms with some horrible tragedy like this with the right kind of support. Or maybe she killed herself later, I never heard about it. But I feel like I dodged such a bullet right then. I don't know if I would have gotten out of the field had she died, but it would have been just such a disaster for me. This is a narrow, narrow escape. And I've had other ones that are the same way. So let me just touch something quickly. How do you tell the difference between a person genuinely improving from a deep depression, who's really getting better, versus somebody who seems to get better, but actually it's because they're getting ready to off themselves? This became an obsession of mine after this trauma. And so I began looking at every single depressed person who was starting to get better, and I'd be suspicious they're getting ready to kill themselves. Like a depressed patient would come in and say, I feel better today. I said, are you getting ready to die? I'd jump all over them. And sometimes I was right, but a lot of times I was wrong. I had one patient, a young woman, whose boyfriend had left her, and one thing and another, it doesn't matter the details, and she'd been somewhat suicidal. And she suddenly started feeling a lot better and convinced me she was better. And I signed the papers to let her out of the hospital. But then I second-guessed myself later that day. I thought, oh, shit, I've done it again. I've been faked out by one of these people. So I called her up. There was no answer. Oh, no, what's happening to her? I actually went over to her house after I got off work that night. And I'm banging on the door. I found out where her apartment number was. I'm banging on the door. Helen, open up. It's George Atwood. No answer. I thought, she's lying in there dead. So I got down on my hands and knees and was sniffing at the door, and I thought I smelled gas. I kicked the damn door in. She wasn't home. There was no gas. She was out at a movie with her boyfriend. It was very embarrassing. I had to pay for a new lock on the door and everything, but that was the least of the problem. That's how fanatical I was. But other people, I caught them and I was right. I had a woman whose children were taken away from her. She was very deeply depressed. All 3 children, never get to see them anymore. Suddenly she comes in all dressed up, looking good. I want to be discharged. I'm feeling much better now. And I said, oh, okay. Oh, yeah? I think you're going to kill yourself. I'm not going to kill myself. You shut up. So what I've written on the board here are 3 criteria that help, through false positives, false negatives. I kind of sorted all this out and wrote a famous article on this. 2 pages long is all it is. And it's how you can tell the difference between the real McCoy of a recovery from a depression versus a pseudo-recovery based on a secret decision to die. Because they hide it from you. Because they won't admit it. Because if they do that, the solution's out the window. One criterion would be this. You ask the person why they're feeling better. Tell me about the change that has happened that now makes you feel better, and how is the problem that brought this all upon you? What's the positive change that's occurred in your thinking about the whole original problem? They don't know what to say, because a suicidal person has not had any change at all. They've got the answer. So they come up with something real artificial and stupid, and you can see it's no good. Secondly, you ask them about the future. Tell me, what's it going to be like for you next week, next month, next year? Do you have any plans? Are you going to go back to school, complete your degree, or try to get a different job that's more lucrative for you and your children, or something like that? People who are genuinely recovering from bad depression, the future becomes a kind of wall of blackness. You can't think about anything. But when you're recovering, the future comes alive again. This is phenomenology. And plans and dreams and purposes begin to crystallize. And people start, I'm going to go back to the county college and try to complete my certificate for that, and then go on to the University of Missouri or something and complete my job there. And I'm hoping still to maybe become a physical therapist. See, if they're talking like that, That means there are real concrete plans and dreams. That means the future's alive. That's a sign there's a real recovery there. That makes no sense if a person's going to commit suicide. They can't fake it. They don't know what to say because if suicide has no future, the future's still black. It stops as of 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon when I drink my vodka and take my Nalyadar. You guys understand that? And then lastly, you ask them about suicide itself. I'm concerned that suicide is an issue here. I want to make sure you're not planning to kill yourself. You wanted to die before. Why don't you want to die now? Talk to me about the possibility of self-destruction. A person really recovering can talk about that without getting all upset. They can say, I was that way. I don't see it that way anymore. I wouldn't mind if God took me, but I promise you, Dr. Atwood, I'm not going to do anything to myself. It's not going to happen. I feel differently about it now, and here are the reasons. A person on the threshold of suicide, when you ask them about this, they feel caught. They're caught red-handed, okay, with their hand in the cookie jar, but it's not a cookie jar, it's the death jar. They're getting ready to do it. They just go kind of ballistic on you. They can't answer, their faces turn red, they fight against you, and you just know that this is in the offing. And then you tell them, you're not going home today. You're going to have to be in the hospital with us tonight. I take no chances. I'm afraid your life is at stake. And then what you see happen is the depression rolls back in. All the apparent improvement starts to melt away and flake away. And the voice comes back, you know what I mean, or whatever the corresponding symptoms are. And so that's such an important thing. So I'm telling you this, I want you to remember this. If you know anyone depressed now who's suddenly shown an upswing in mood, watch out, it may be happening. I first told this story in this class about 10 or 12 years ago, and one of my students, right after I told it, rushed out. Maybe that's what the student was doing, no, they were rushing out of here before I got to this part. But anyway, she said, oh my God, that's my roommate, because her roommate had been deeply depressed. And she rushed back to her dorm room, and sure enough found the roommate in a coma. She overdosed herself, and they saved her, it was good. And I felt so good about that. So my telling the story led to an intervention to save someone's life. Okay? Let's stop there today, guys.